Never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas, on Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
What's going on, sports fans? Welcome to Week 10 of the Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. Greg Hoyle has his winter vest on and his hat backwards. He's ready to go as we move into Week 10 of the NFL slate. Greg, we've got some accounting to do this week.
Supporting our troops, baby. Supporting our troops.
Listen,
Salute the service.
that's a team I'll always bet on. You know, you can't go wrong with that. However, Greg, we have to start here. We have to rip it off like a Band-Aid. We can talk about the wins all day. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week. What happened?
Right, you've got some wacky domestic dispute theory going on over there. I don't know what happened. When you're wrong, you're wrong. You know, I have no explanation. I had like glimmers of hope maybe twice, and then I was like, why am I even trying to do this to myself? I watched what did I watch? Oh, this is going to be terrible. All the Right Moves was my first time watching it.
All right.
Tom Cruise as a defensive juggernaut.
Interesting.
Have you seen this movie?
I have not seen this movie.
Laughable.
All right.
Laughable.
Well, I will say.
And by the way,
yes.
Tom Cruise was a real son of a bitch in a lot of all of his early movies.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people were super into him. Relations with prostitutes. There's a risky scene in All the Right Moves that's just super uncomfortable. But
it was the time we were living in, man. It was the 80s. People were doing crazy things.
I don't know.
All right, so I'm going to throw my theory out there quick on the whole Tampa Bay fiasco. If you watch Tom Brady, when he makes a bad play, he's usually on the sideline, slamming his helmet down. He's usually yelling at a wide receiver or a teammate for not being in the right spot. But in this case, none of that happened. He looked a little bit disinterested in the game. So I said last week that I would love to be either the realtor who shows on House Hunters, who shows Tom and Antonio Brown and Giselle the home that they're looking for, or the last housemate on Big Brother. I think that Giselle was unhappy with Tom bringing his buddy Antonio home, and that is what he was worried about as the game was going on. I have absolutely nothing to base that on except sheer speculation and observation of Tom Brady's body language. His head was thinking about what he was going home to and how unhappy Giselle was. Happy wife, happy life exists even for football players, Greg. I'm throwing that out there.
So you're saying it took 1 week for Antonio to break Tom's spirit?
I don't know about Tom. I think Giselle broke Tom's spirit based on Antonio's house guest manners, we'll say, or something like that.
She's got to step her game up. I don't see how that gets signed off on.
Giselle has to step her game up, you mean?
Yeah, man.
Oh, all right.
I don't have an Antonio Brown living in my house.
I don't know. I don't know. He does have a charming smile. Guy's got one of the best smiles in the business. So, I don't know if I could say no to his face, but I might have to discuss with Tom. All right, enough about Antonio Brown's smile. Let's jump into this week's slate of games. From a pretty smile to what's expected to be an ugly game this week, the Cleveland Browns return to action coming off the bye week. They are 3.5-point favorites as they play host to the Houston Texans. And they played their last game. It was pretty sloppy conditions against the Oakland Raiders. 3.5 points in this one. Most places, there are some 4s out there. Greg, you're going to roll with the home favorites in this one, Cleveland. Tell me why you like them.
Yeah, and by the way, I did. So while we were talking, I've been talking about buying it down because I'm getting it at 4 at most of the places I'm looking at. But I was just taking a look at a couple other sites, and one of them was just showing me 3 minus 120. So I'm probably going to activate a new app this weekend here and save myself about $15 per 100 that I have to invest.
Going to your fourth, that would be your fourth book?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Which, you should be rolling with a good, 5+ outs anyway. But from that side of things, it should be.
Wait, I just got to say, I like how you casually said you should just be rolling with 5+ outs.
Yeah, man.
Casually.
Hey,
You only have 4.
I only have 3.
Well, 3. Now you're going to add your 4th. So how can you casually throw out there that you should be rolling with 5+ outs?
I like working off a line of credit there, Joe. I don't like having to front my money.
Anyway.
Kind of break old habits. But so it's going to be a sloppy game, right? So the forecast I have here, to me, I'm going to get it in now because, you're going to get it in at 3, and then things could only happen in my favor. I'm going to expect Chubb not to play. They still have a strong running game. They're coming off the bye week. And if they get Chubb back, then I got my 1-2 punch that I can roll out there with. I think the fact that OBJ is not there, I'm not going to say it helps them per se, but it doesn't force them to go with a game plan to try and feed the ball to one player, which really isn't their game. If they're controlling the ball on the ground, that's really when Cleveland looks good. So I'm not saying it helps them, but it didn't really have that much of an impact on their year-long outcome as far as I'm concerned. So I really think Cleveland, the pros of what Houston can do, right, are moving the ball through the air. That's the way that they can take advantage of people. David Johnson hasn't been playing well, but he's out. He's in the concussion protocol, so I guess they'll be trotting out Duke Johnson. But I think the major thing is Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, they need the ball. Brandon Cooks, who plays for the Texans.
We established that last week, yeah.
Indeed.
Didn't help us with the Texans cover. I should point out.
Indeed.
Jake Luton heard me bash him and decided he was gonna pull like Magic Johnson as he spun into the end zone there. Anyway.
Indeed. So from that side of things, I don't think the weather helps them any. They're going on the road. It's going to be a sloppy game. I like Cleveland in that type of AFC East, smack them in the mouth type of game. I do not like Cleveland against good teams, but against average or below average teams, they seem to do pretty well. So I'll lay the 3. I'm going to take the key number. I'm going to get it at the key number. I just found it at 3 minus 120. So I'm going to get that. If you lay 3.5 or 4, that's silly.
Yeah, well, especially when you can get the other number that's out there. I want to touch on something though, because you said this is going to be a sloppy game, right? But you didn't mention, I think, the most important factor which is the reason that you like Cleveland so much this week. And yes, rain is usually, I think, what people think of when we're talking about a sloppy game, but that's not what you're referring to in this instance. What's the big factor that you're referring to?
The wind.
Yeah.
The wind, right? So putting the ball in the air, the rain isn't as much of an issue. It makes the ball a little bit harder. That's why you see the guy with the gloves on, usually when it's rainy, but it's the wind. It was 2 weeks ago, right, when you had all those wind games, and it was just you saw the teams couldn't put the ball in the air. They were grounding and pounding, trying to take the air out of the ball. Right. Once they got the lead, they were trying to run it and get the heck out of Dodge.
And Cleveland was one of those teams who, against the Raiders, had a nice low-scoring game. So let me ask you this. Do you like a play on the total in this one? Because we saw it go way under, and I know you're going to ask me what the total is next, and I did have it right here. Of course, I've got 9,000 windows up.
46. If you, to me, right, if you like the weather to play an impact, you got to like the under. But from that side of things, I don't have a play on the under at this point. I could take it, but I'm not going to roll out with that. I'm going to go with the -3 because my only thing in these types of situations is Cleveland's run game is so effective and Houston's defense is so bad. I've seen Cleveland just put up points on the ground that they could get in the mid to high 30s just by cramming the ball down there. So I'm not going to, especially if they've got Chubb back. So I'm going to hang tight on that, on that under.
In addition to that, the Houston Texans defense is one of the worst run defenses in the league. So that'll definitely play into Cleveland's advantage in this one. All right, let's jump ahead to the next game. I think you made quite the compelling case there. Let's look at the NFC least battle between the Philadelphia Eagles as they visit the New York Giants. Giants coming off their second win of the season as they've beaten the Washington football team twice. Eagles coming off their bye week right now. They lead the division, but if the Giants win this one, they are even in the win column. These two teams played on Thursday Night Football a couple weeks ago, and I was on the Giants then. I think that the Giants have only gotten better. Now, that game was in Philly. Giants were +4 points. This game in New York, Giants are +4 points, despite playing a better football. Greg, I want you to go over this one with me because you said you were looking at it that the Eagles are coming off their bye week, extra rest, and that they're getting healthier, right? So that's the reason you want to stay away, and you're a homer. So what about the Eagles team? But in all seriousness, you're in Philadelphia. What about the Eagles' health this week has you more optimistic?
Why am I going first? It's your handicap.
Because
what do you like about the Giants?
So I'll start then. Fine. If you look at this from the advanced metrics, which everybody right now loves, DVOA seems to be one of the better things. The Giants statistically are a better team than the Eagles. Right? The Giants are playing better football. This is a team that has a lot of young players who are trending upwards. You look at their offensive line; they've had more consistency together, and they have played better protecting Daniel Jones back there. When the Giants win the turnover battle, I don't have the exact numbers, but they are very good against the spread when they win the turnover battle. Also, their defense is in the top half of the league in forcing turnovers this year, and they're playing a team in the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz who is prone to turning the ball over. The Eagles have had problems on their offensive line. I think we've already seen that a week isn't going to solve those issues because guys tried to come back, and it didn't work, right? Who was it that got hurt? Was it Lane Johnson, Greg, who tried to return and then had to go back out? And they've had issues across that offensive line. I know that there were issues on both sides of the ball previously. Alshon Jeffrey, he playing this week, Greg?
Allegedly.
Greg has an MIA posters.
I'm aggressively disinterested in Alshon Jeffrey's status for the game.
But even if so, I actually think that is a disadvantage in week one, right? In his week one being his first week back, because all of a sudden everything shifts, and guys who maybe knew their roles, who weren't as familiar with the offense with Alshon Jeffrey in there, now they shift. Maybe they're running slightly different routes. Jeffrey might be taking some routes from Greg Ward or something like that. So I don't think maybe he and Carson aren't on the same page in their first week back. You don't have that training camp that everybody usually went through. So I think it could be a little bit of a disadvantage in week one. I know. What's the tight end situation there for them right now, Greg?
Goddard's back. Ertz is still on IR from what I can tell. Goddard was back before the bye, so now he'll be back within rhythm.
Did he get
Sanders
banged up?
Back.
Did he get banged up, though, in that game before the bye? He was healthy throughout it?
He's not on the injury report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and they have the bye week, so he could have been cleared it still, even so. But
Yep.
But they're coming off it. So yeah, so those are my cases for the Giants, right? And then again, the fact that they're home. The Giants have either won. Last week I said it. I was on the Giants against Washington, and they won that game, right? Albeit a close game in the end. They look good early on. But the Giants in their previous games before that, I think it was like their last 4 games, had lost by a combined 7 points. So the Giants are playing close games. I love what Joe Judge did in sending Golden Tate home after he was putting a me-first attitude, saying he wanted the ball. He put him on the scout team. Then he said that he wasn't bringing him to Washington, and now Tate's back with the team. He banged up his knee a little bit. I think he's expected to go for Sunday, and maybe he's got something to prove out there. Despite the attitude, right? I do think they need to throw him the ball. I think he's a really talented wide receiver, and Daniel Jones could benefit from that there. However, I get the idea of playing for the team and having that attitude, and I think Judge showed that nobody's bigger than the team with his decision there. I like that. I like that a lot, and I think the Giants are rallying together at the right time. They're playing the best football, in my eyes, in that division right now. So I'll take the points with them.
No issues at all with taking the 4 points. I want to say that if they do anything other than trot Jeffrey out as the best fourth wide receiver in the league, I would
Scotty
be
Miller.
disgruntled about
Scotty Miller is going to take exception. Is going to take exception to that. I'm just saying. Last week you just said Scotty Miller was the best fourth wide receiver in the league.
I mean, you can't disrupt Rager's role, the first round draft pick. Folgertron has earned his spot.
Folgertron. I love it.
I'm done. Seriously, like, why would you take a disgruntled, old, oft-injured player and put him ahead of a guy who's just earned himself on the field? Put him ahead of Greg Ward. I don't care about that. But, I mean, Ward's a slot guy, and that's kind of the issue there. So Alshon's not a slot guy. So, I mean, here's the primary thing. The offensive line is getting healthier. If Sayamalu, we'll know midday tomorrow if Sayamalu is coming back. I think they have to bring that up by 4 o'clock tomorrow. If Sayamalu comes back, I think it's Herbig that would move over to right guard, and you pretty much so have close to your starting day offensive line, which I think is a good one.
And how that the starting day of this year?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that go?
It's a good offense.
How'd that go?
We don't have to worry about wins and losses. You're sitting here touting.
Didn't he get sacked
Giants
8 times?
losing.
Didn't he get sacked
Giants
8 times?
We told you that matchup was a bad matchup.
Uh-huh.
Bad matchup.
All right.
The Giants are not the Redskins. The Giants front seven is
The
not
football
the
team.
Redskins.
The football team.
Okay, my bad. So I like the guys coming back healthy. I think you're looking at a good quarterback and a good team. That's right. I'm saying it. The Eagles are going to be a good team if healthy versus a bad quarterback. And I do like the new coach, but it's a bad quarterback and a not good team. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
I'm not gonna go head to head with you because I said I wasn't gonna do it.
Oh, wait. I wish you didn't say that right there because I wanted to ask a follow-up question, but now I got to go right to the next game. We got to go because you said you weren't going to go head to head with me.
I'm not going to take a bad number.
Okay.
And 4 is a bad number for a team who's only got 3 wins.
Okay. With that being said,
you want to give me 3? I'll take the Eagles Giants at 3.
no, the number's 4. That's the number that's out there. We're not. If you want to, actually, you know what? If you want to pay me the juice, we could talk about that. That's for another conversation. We'll offline it, but I want to move on because you said last week you're not going to go any worse than 500 because in the second half of the season in our head-to-head matchups because you weren't going to take any games. So with that, let's look at the matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers this week. The Dolphins hosting the Chargers coming off their win against Arizona while the Chargers are coming off 2 fades in the end zone and a whisker from a win, which we were very happy about being on the Las Vegas Raiders last week, and losing yet again with Justin Herbert just putting up unbelievable numbers. Greg, I'll let you choose. Who do you want to go first on this one?
So here, I'm going to give you a visual aid. It was number 31 on the Raiders, by the way.
Yeah.
Who is the cornerback, and he did one of these afterwards. Hopefully you can see this. He was strutting.
Yep.
He had a big strut going on.
He did a great...
I did that exact strut in my living room to my foyer, through the foyer, back into the living room. And my wife Krista was like, "You happy about that?" Because I watched the replay. I was like, I was like, there's no way that he caught that ball. I watched the first replay, saw the ball move, and me and number 31, we were real happy.
Strutting around.
Um,
Peacocking.
but
I believe they call it peacocking.
oh yeah, we were strutting hard.
Hey, listen, he did a great job to break it up.
it-
His hand was in there the whole way. He brought the ball out. And I thought the tight end was doing a good job holding on. It looked like it, but when you saw that ball clearly come out, because he ripped it out, which was kudos to him. Yeah. Yeah.
So just like I said, I'm not going to take a bad number. We're at 1 now. And I believe you're saying that that's because a lot of money's coming in. We have different openers. Our openers for this game are all over the place. But -1 for the Dolphins here. I really like what Flores has going on here. And I think it's laughable the way that people were talking about Tua, saying that they're putting him in there to audition to make sure that they don't have to draft another quarterback. What the hell is that? Like, how are people making that assessment after one game? So, like, Flores had to actually address that. Miami's defense is playing well. Miami's finding ways to win every single game. Everyone was on the Arizona Cardinals last week. Everyone. And they just went in there and won the game by 3 in a tough situation. They had the great situation against the Rams, and that was an easy pick. But I think this is a great situation against a terrible coach, probably the worst coach left in the league that hasn't been fired yet. So he should be relieved of his duties quickly. But he won't be. So as long as Lynn's out there trotting out there, I'm not sure that Herbert's better than Tua. Not sure at all.
Oh.
I think you've got a larger sample size versus a smaller sample size, and Tua's got more wins than Herbert does.
You're
so
right.
I'm going to take the quarterback with the more wins. I lay what?
Does he?
1
They
point?
both have 2, no? Don't they both have 2 wins?
Well, I got to check it out. All right, higher winning percentage.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
with
2-0. Nobody's got a higher winning percentage than Tua right now in the league. So
I'm going to go fact check that.
I doubt he's going to maintain that winning percentage for the entirety of his career.
It's a strong agreement right there.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, I'm with you. I think right now what I'm looking at on some of these teams are buying low and selling high. Go ahead. What do you want to say?
1 win.
1 win. Okay, I stand corrected.
They beat the Bengals with what's his name?
Tyrod Taylor. That's right. That's right. So the thing about the Chargers is that they are forced to overcome Anthony Lynn, in my opinion. I can't argue with that. I think that going to the same play twice, to lose 2 games in a row on the last play of the game is just gut-wrenching. But this team doesn't stop fighting. I'll tell you what, you might not be a great X's and O's guy, which he is not, but I think the team likes him, right? I think he's a good guy. All the interviews that I've seen, like, seems like a great guy. And
The team doesn't like losing.
well, I agree. And I think, right, you get in those positions, though, where a coach is liked and he could be on the way out, and the guys know he could be on the way out, and they step up their play. I remember Dan Quinn with the Falcons, right, when they made that announcement last year that, like, or they let it leak that Quinn could be out, and then the Falcons played their best game of the season. They also shifted Raheem Morris that game, which maybe it really was Raheem Morris they were playing for based on how they're playing now. But I think that they've played great football despite Anthony Lynn, because they have had big leads in games and they just haven't been able to maintain them. And I blame the coach for that, very much like the Atlanta Falcons. Right? These are the new Atlanta Falcons. This line should not be 1 or 1.5. That is the mind-boggling thing to me. How can this team be just a 1-point underdog going from Los Angeles to Miami against a team that is as hot as the Miami Dolphins are and as well coached as the Miami Dolphins are? I'm not sold on Tua yet. That's part of this here, right? The more tape you get on him,
neither.
right? So if he didn't look great against the Rams, a much better defense than Arizona has seemingly put out there this season, right? Arizona's done it with their offense more so than their defense. And sometimes there's just a line that looks a little bit too fishy out there, a little too good to be true. It's too easy to take the Dolphins at -1. And I'm going to read something to you. And this impacts the other game, Greg, that we were talking about before we got on here. It
doesn't start with "it's not your fault."
No, it doesn't start with "it's not your fault." Road dogs catching 2 points or less since 2017, 38, 14, and 3 against the spread, 73%. Road dogs, I'll say it again, catching 2 points or less are 38, 14, and 3 against the spread. That's a big sample size.
How many of those were head coached by Anthony Lynn?
You're right. I'd have to go back and look, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers are in that group, Anthony Lynn-led Chargers.
I bet he was on the 13-3.
Oh, you think he is the losing side of that, is what you're saying.
That's a good stat and a fair sample size. I can't rebut.
So I can't make an argument outside of how well Justin Herbert has played. I think that you can make an argument. The defense for Miami is, I believe, in the top 10. So you can't say that. They just played an offense that I just made an argument for in the Cardinals. So I can't say that it's the level of competition that they're playing. And I think Brian Flores is a great coach. They do seem to have some chemistry here. There is just all of that being said, this line doesn't make sense. I look for that nugget. And that's what I'm going to go with. Eventually, you said to me before we started this, eventually the Chargers are going to get blown out, right? The other side of that coin is eventually they're going to hold a lead, right? That they get. So I'm going to take the point. We're going head to head. Greg won 5-1 so far this season when we've gone head to head. Yeah, listen, you're
too small of a sample size.
You're right.
Too small.
And you're never going to dig out of the hole if you don't take a shot. So, with that being said, we are on opposite sides of that game. However, despite our head-to-head record, Greg has been absolutely on fire with his teases so far this season. 6-0 coming into this week. They haven't all been cigar games, even with the numbers. I think anything but. But what you give the people, Greg, in terms of entertainment value, plus also monetary return on investment there, you're giving them the best of both worlds is the way that I look at it. Obviously, last week, the Patriots coming back against the Jets, covering on Monday Night Football with that field goal. Yeah, he was a little sweating it out a little bit at halftime there. And Chris Portente had a little sprinkle on the Jets' money line. So I think that made him a little bit more nervous going into that one there. But this week, Greg is back with another 2-team teaser for you. We're going to start with the Carolina Panthers getting 5.5 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, so it's going to be a 6.5 pointer. Yeah, we're going to do 6.5 pointer, and we'll get to why we're going to go with that number on the back end. So that'll bring it up to 12. Certainly not a key number, but as long as it's 11.5, we're good on that. So you have McCaffrey who's out, but if I've said it once, I've definitely said it a million times. I don't care about running backs. I really don't, and I love Christian McCaffrey. I love everything about him, but the team's played well without him. Bridgewater's played well. They've spread it out to their wide receivers really well. It's not only DJ Moore. They got Anderson, Curtis Samuel. Like he was totally just MIA for the first 3 games, and I think they've really started to incorporate him, and it just makes the other guys more effective. So Carolina hasn't been winning all these games, but they have been keeping them close. This is a big game. This is a big division game, right? So even though they had this division look ahead last week, they still played the Chargers really tough. And they're
not
just
the Chargers. They played the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs.
Yep.
Yeah. They played the Chiefs. So speaking of the opposite of Lynn, right? Matt Rule's look good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can't really say too much bad about Matt Rule. They've looked good. They've looked creative. Fake punt last week, which extended a drive. He's playing to win.
And they
right?
took
And
the
he's
ball. They took the ball and ran right down the field against the Chiefs. I loved it. Nobody does that today. That was fantastic.
Right. Right. And quite frankly, like, you were thinking, like, all right, how are the Chiefs going to come back and win this game? But they didn't look comfortable. So I just like the brand of football that Carolina's been playing. They're playing for the coach. They're doing really well. They haven't missed a step with Christian McCaffrey. And Bridgewater, short of that, what was the game? The Thursday night game?
Against the Atlanta
pretty
Falcons.
Yeah, and he got popped, and he looked bad against a bad team.
Yeah.
I'll put that, that was kind of the outlier of the year where he looked kind of out of place, right? So I don't really
And it was
like
a
them
Thursday night game. It was a Thursday night game too,
Yep. You're going to have a determined opponent here, right? So from my side of things, but who knows? Maybe Giselle's still chirping at Tom and he's still in a cranky mood or not cranky enough. But that's the other side of the coin where you're like, okay, this is a get right game for Tampa, and you're certainly going to have that. I don't think the Panthers are going to expose Tampa like the Saints did, but I think it'll be a tougher division game. I don't think anyone's going to blow anyone out like we saw the last game for Tampa. Certainly Carolina's not going to blow out Tampa, but they've been playing close games, and you're getting over those 11 points. I'm really liking it because they've been playing close games.
So I want to just address one thing here, right? Like, we've heard a lot about Teddy Bridgewater and his numbers against the spread and how good he has been when he's an underdog. If you've been betting in the NFL and you listen to any betting podcast or read any betting thing, I mean, it's something like 21-5 or something like that. And I think that at some point, I think people have to catch on to that, right? Like, I think the public in Vegas kind of have to catch up. The other thing that I've been seeing a couple of places this week is how bad Tampa Bay has been as a road favorite, right? But this is a different Tampa team. Again, this is Tom Brady. And then I've also been hearing so much about how Bruce Arians has been so critical of Tom Brady, and that maybe he's even more critical of Brady than he is some of the other players. Like, he's too hard on the greatest player of all time. But so I honestly don't know. I'm going to stay away from this game, especially on the number, just because I get that a lot of people are on Carolina in this one. But I just don't trust. You tell me I've got the greatest quarterback of all time coming off what's got to be the worst loss of his career, and I am just hesitant to say he's not going to bounce back in that spot. But I completely get it when the numbers say this game is Carolina or pass, right? And for that reason, I'm just going to take a break from it. But look, like I've said to you many times as you've done these teases, I can't say I don't love 11.5. That's why they call them teases. But it doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile. You have been winning on these things. So the Panthers, plus it's going to end up being 12, right? It's going to end up being 12 with the 6.5.
Yeah, we'll end up being 12, 6.5. So think about this strategy too, and I'll bring this to a business side of things here. Not that it's 100% the same thing, right? So like, think about running a sales team and you have a top producer, right? And say maybe you're running a sales team and you get somebody else's top producer, and then he comes in and you treat him like an asshole, like he doesn't know what he's doing or like he's making a bunch of mistakes. I really don't get the strategy here, right? Like, Brady has certainly, you got to treat him fair, right? But the talk is that he's not even being fair. He's going over the top, seemingly trying to prove a point that, like, Tom's not above the rest of you guys. Like, I don't think the rest of the team thinks that Tom's above the rest of the guys,
right.
But like, you don't need to be picking apart the top producer and every little mistake that they make.
Yeah,
Dude had a bad game.
I don't know.
Right? Don't dwell on it.
I think Tom Brady's a little bit of a masochist, right? So I don't think that. I think
he likes the pain. You're saying.
I think he might. I don't know. This is like, there's no evidence to say whether or not Bill Belichick treated him this way when he was in New England or didn't. But we do know that, if anything, Belichick didn't do it in public, right? That's the difference, is that Arians is
Right.
doing it to the media. But I also feel like it would have stopped. It would have been squashed early. And it's only happened twice, right? It was both of these games, right after these games against New England is really when we've seen this happen. So I don't know. Go ahead.
And the other part is, right, and I'm going back to my business thing, right? If you're running a team that's achieved something and you're somebody who's achieved something, it's a lot different, right? You got more rope. Bill Belichick can give Tom Brady a hard time. Bruce Arians really can't.
Right.
Like I don't see it. It wouldn't land well on me. Just from that perspective. But I mean, Tom's a team dude, and he's going to hold his team accountable. But I don't know about the strategy. And I think that's the weak point where I always go back to quarterback and head coach. Where's the weakness? Certainly in the head coach. It's not in the quarterback.
So I just want to look at something here because after the Saints, right, they played the first time. What did they do in week 2? What did the Bucks do? They won 31-17 over the Panthers. It was the same scenario. But that game, if I remember correctly, because I think
much closer.
Yeah, and you had at least 7 points closer because they were trying to run out the clock. I think, and Fournette broke a 60-yard run or something like that.
Yep.
And you were on the over 28 points for the Buccaneers in that one, so you ended up cashing. See?
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah, obviously. You always love it when it works in your favor and hate it when it goes against you here. So it should be interesting to see. And maybe for the Panthers, that serves as a little bit of extra motivation here. And the Panthers obviously needed a little bit more time for that cohesion because they had so many new players in the offseason that in week 2, they were still trying to figure out and gel a little bit. No Christian McCaffrey. I think he's been officially ruled out for this one, though.
Yep.
But I think they're 3-3 without McCaffrey, 0-3 with him this season. So
correct.
Take that for what it's worth. All right, let's move on to the next game here. We'll go to Monday Night Football. The Chicago Bears are playing host to the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, Bears getting 3 points at home against the Vikings here. Bears came off, I don't even know what to make of that game against Tennessee. They were driving the ball down the field. They had a turnover that went back for 6. They had another off the fumble. They had another, I think, interception down that bounced off somebody's hands. And then they came back and cut the game to 7. The Vikings have looked like one of the best teams in football over the couple weeks with Dalvin Cook just going absolutely bananas, running all over Detroit last week. And I am big on the Bears this week. Again, I think I'm buying them very low. They haven't looked good the last couple weeks. But the big reason is because of what they've been able to do when it comes to limiting Dalvin Cook. At Soldier Field, the Bears have held Dalvin Cook to 2 yards per carry so far in his career. And I think overall, it's like 2.5 yards per carry. So the Bears front and the Bears defense is still what keeps them in games. And if you tell me that Kirk Cousins needs to win a game, well, we don't love that. Also, it's Kirk Cousins in prime time. And how many times have we given you the numbers about Kirk Cousins in prime time? He just doesn't win. I do think they had a cover earlier this year against the Seahawks, or did they not? Greg, did they cover that game? It was either a Sunday or a Monday night game.
It was 26-27, yes.
So they covered earlier, and again, Dalvin Cook went out in that one. But the Bears' defense is a much better defense than that Seattle defense. It's a much better defense than that Detroit defense. I think they're going to be able to limit Dalvin Cook, and if you are able to limit Dalvin Cook, I think you are able to limit the Minnesota Vikings in this one, and I'm getting 3 points at home. I will take the home dog in the division game. There's nothing stronger than that for me over the course of history. So I say take the Bears +3. And Greg, you have a little like in this one too as the second half of your parlay.
Yep. So this is why we made it 6.5. So if we get the 9.5 points, we're not going to do 7 because that's pointless. You lose on 10. So you get a little bit, you have to lay a little bit less to get that. So we didn't get through any key numbers. I think you're going to look at a pretty tight divisional game here. I think the Bears, right, the record wasn't as good. things early on weren't as good as they seem, right? Things lately, I don't think are as bad as they seem either. And I just don't think that the Bears are going to be in a situation where they're going to get blown out at home. The only thing, because you were talking about fishy lines earlier, I thought this line was fishy, right? And I think it's based on perception and what Dalvin Cook's been doing. What swayed me was your stat about how Chicago has controlled Dalvin Cook on the ground. So that pleased me enough to be swayed here. So I love the 9.5. Taking it a little different here. Last week we gave teams that needed to win, right? So now we're giving teams, I think it's very reasonable to say that the Bears could win, right? And we got 9.5 points. So even if they don't win, as long as they lose by less than, a touchdown and a field goal, we're in good shape.
Let's not forget, I know perception is really big here. And we're looking at, it was just 3 weeks ago that Minnesota got blown out by the Atlanta Falcons at home, 40-23, right? And then they went against Green Bay. That was the big shocker. That was the one outlier in all of this. Like, everybody was shocked that they beat Green Bay 28-22 there. Dalvin Cook had all 4 touchdowns for them. The Lions were in a bad spot, right? Matthew Stafford was on that COVID-19 list. He didn't practice all week going into that game. And I
went out in the third quarter.
Right. And I believe the Lions were coming off a win the week before. No, they lost to Indy the week before that, I believe. So I'm scratch me on that one there. But it was an interesting spot. I think the Lions were still, in most people's perception, were still riding a little high. I think this is a good time to sell on them, right? If you look at these teams that their defense is not good, and they are going up against a team that has a good defense. The matchup styles make fights, and I think the fight in this one just favors the Chicago Bears, and I'm getting points with them. As we like to say, might call for a little sprinkle on the money line there. So it's probably plus 130, plus 135, something like that is my guess. I don't have it right in front of me. That's all right. All right, that brings it to the end of Week 10 in our picks here. I think this is a pretty good pod. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you on
a week?
Tuesday morning.
Yeah, we'll tell you after the games are played for sure. Listen, I want to wish everyone out there health and safety as we're seeing these COVID cases spike up. I hope it doesn't ruin any football. I hope it doesn't impact you guys who are listening out there. So stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the little things in life, like a 1 o'clock kickoff with an Octo box if you get one on the Red Zone channel. Those things make me happy.
I find the Octoboxes too much. They're too small. I can't see what's going on.
Well, you just need a bigger TV then.
It's for the visually impaired.
You just need a bigger TV, that's all. We have to get the projector screen out there. Listen, Greg.
Masters action going on Sunday, by the way.
For those golf fans out there, hopefully I wish you no bad beats this week. Guys, Week 10 of the Wingfoot Locks. Thank you for listening. For Greg Hoyle, I'm Joe Messeri. Until next time, remember, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether or not you cover the spread. Have a great week, everybody.